Hello my loves, Tony here from TL Yarncrafts and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, hello, welcome. It is so good to see you. Keep smiling, it looks good on you. Here at TL Yarncrafts, I show my crochet love through free patterns, product reviews, and techniques that will blow your mind. So if you're into all of that, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss my next video. Not too long ago, I made a video with a bunch of my favorite crochet tips and folks went nuts for it. So this time around, I asked friends here on YouTube and in my Facebook group, TLYC Makers, to give me their favorite tips. I've rounded up my favorites and I'm excited to share them with you today. Let's jump into these tips. Our first tip comes from our video sponsor, Chirp, and that is to pair your crochet with audiobooks. Listening to audiobooks when you crochet makes the time fly, and you'll get the best bang for your buck when you buy from Chirp. Chirp is an online audiobook store that offers amazing deals. Unlike other audiobook retailers, there are no monthly fees and no subscriptions to worry about. Just buy the book that you want and it's yours to listen to anytime. I scored Karen Slaughter's The Silent Wife for $3.99. I just finished it while working up a blanket the other day and oh my gosh, that book was so good. Get $5 off your first purchase with Chirp with code CROCHET5. Now with a $5 credit, you can basically get your first book for free. Find a link down in the description and don't forget to use the code. This tip comes from Lindsay from our Facebook group. If you're stumped on what colors to use in your next project, let Pinterest do all the hard work. Remember, Pinterest is an artsy, image-based search engine, ideal for finding inspiration. I like to start by picking one color I know I plan to use in the project, then putting the words color palette after it when I search. Another great place to find color palettes is coolers.co. They just revamped their website and it's totally worth falling into that color rabbit hole. Now this tip is for me. When you're planning how much yarn to get for your next project, do a little bit of math up front so you don't over or under buy. Start with one skein and then make a swatch. In my case, I'm making a granny square blanket with 49 squares. My single square weighs 11 grams. So if one square weighs 11 grams, how much does 49 squares weigh? Multiply 49 times 11, that's 539. Now, divide that number by the number of grams in one skein. In this case, that's 85 grams. This gives me a little over 6. I'll round up to 7 total skeins needed for this project, and then just to be safe, I'll add one more skein, bringing my order up to 8 skeins. If you're not super confident with yarn substitutions, Brittany from our Facebook group recommends bookmarking the website yarnsub.com. Yarnsub is a database that compares the characteristics of the yarn you're looking for with other commercially available yarns. You can even filter your search by fiber or price. Now, Yarnsub doesn't have every single yarn ever made, but they're a great resource if your favorite yarn gets discontinued. Now this tip comes from Gloria in the Facebook group. When shopping for yarn in the store, be sure to check and match your dye lots. Yarns in the same dye lot were dyed at the same time and we can assume that they're going to be the same color. Differences between dye lots can be subtle, but they really show up in big projects like sweaters and blankets. Here's another tip from me. Try different resources when you're first learning to crochet. We all learn differently, and just because we love our grandmas doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best teachers for us. Explore crochet books, tutorial videos, and written patterns to see which format works for you. And while we're on the subject of learning, Luann from our Facebook group recommends that you do not give up. Not after the first try, the second try, or the millionth try. Crochet is an art form with so much to explore. Embrace being a beginner. Take your time, be kind to yourself, and don't be scared to try new things. While you're on this journey of mastering crochet, Amaris Barella here on YouTube recommends that you don't be scared to frog your projects. Frogging is the act of ripping out your crochet work. Get it? Rip it, ribbit, frogs. Frogging is part of the process, even for the most experienced crocheter, and especially if you're interested in designing. Crystalline Bismuth of YouTube has some recommendations on choosing the best yarn to learn how to crochet with. Avoid yarns that are too thick or too thin, speckled, variegated, or too textured. The best choice for learning to crochet is a solid color DK or worsted weight merino wool, acrylic, or cotton yarn. I personally like a light green acrylic that's easy on the eyes. Here's a tip from my bag of tricks. When you're learning to crochet, make sure you try both Boye and Susan Bates hooks. These hook brands are available at most craft stores for a great price. I won't get into the weeds about hook heads and neck shaping, just know that these hooks are shaped differently and can impact how you crochet. Most makers are either Team Boye or Team Bates. If you don't want to go through the experiment, spring for a set of Clover Amours. Now these are hybrid hooks and they're universally usable by most crocheters. Danielle Young here on YouTube recommends keeping your scrap yarn so you can practice new stitches. I like to reuse zipper bags from linens or organza bags from yarn deliveries to store my scraps, and I separate them out by yarn weight, though I could be a little bit better about keeping them neat. Genevieve from our Facebook group has a great tip. Ball up or cake up store-bought yarn before using it. Most bullet skeins are prone to yarn barf and tangles, which is super annoying. I like to cake up my yarn using a yarn ball winder, which makes it easier and oh so cute, but you can also just ball it up by hand. Once you've got your yarn in a cake or a ball, Crystals here on YouTube recommends keeping it in a food storage bag to keep it away from pets and dirt. Place the caked yarn in a bag and cut a small hole in the corner for an instant and reusable yarn bowl alternative. Here's a starting chain hack from C Punching here on YouTube. Grab 2 balls of the same yarn. Make a chain longer than you think you need using one of the balls of yarn, and then join to the end of the chain with the second ball of yarn using a standing stitch. Work until you have the right number of stitches and then frog the remaining unneeded chains, and voila, the perfect chain length every time. When it's time to add a new ball of yarn to your project, cut down on the ends that you have to weave in using this hack from Ping Wing here on YouTube. Don't make knots that could come undone. Instead, yarn over with the new yarn on the last step of the stitch and then work over the tails as you go. Now you've got 2 less ends to weave in. Here's a tip for a way easier way to add a textured border to your projects. The traditional crab stitch or the reverse single crochet has a great effect, but it can be a little tricky to work up. Try the imitation crab stitch instead. Jen from our Facebook group shared this gem with us and it about took me out. All you have to do to make this border is turn your work at the end of the row, chain 1, and pull up a loop in the next stitch. Then rotate your hook completely around, yarn over, then pull through the 2 loops on the hook. How amazing is that? Keep your tension loose and it'll be smooth sailing. Now this next tip comes from me. I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. If you want to avoid the dreaded granny square vortex of doom, follow this simple tip. Turn your rounds when making your granny squares. I end my rounds with a chain 1 and then join in the 3rd chain of the starting chain 3. To start the next round, chain 3 and then turn your work. Place 2 double crochet in the same chain 1 space and proceed to make the rest of the round. Easy peasy. And here's a tip from Malia here on YouTube. When making your granny squares, bypass the chain 1 between 3 double crochet groups. I would even pile on top of that and recommend only chaining 1 in the corners of your granny squares. The square on the left is a traditional granny square with chain spaces between the 3 double crochet groups and 2 chains in the corner. On the right, there are no chain spaces between groups and only 1 chain in the corner. This small change makes for a more uniform square with smaller holes. Now let's switch gears and talk about amigurumi. Renee Borgornia here on YouTube recommends using a smaller hook size when you're doing amigurumi. These 2 amigurumi balls were made with the exact same pattern and yarn, but the ball on the left was made with the recommended 6mm crochet hook, while the ball on the right was made with a 4mm hook. The smaller ball is firmer, with smaller stitches and uses much less fiber fill, while the larger ball is soft and you can see the fiber between the stitches. Another great hack for amigurumi is the invisible decrease. A traditional single crochet decrease is pretty noticeable and doesn't really look like a normal single crochet. Instead, insert the hook in the front loop only of each of the next 2 stitches, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops on the hook. Then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops on the hook. After a few stitches, your invisible decrease completely disappears. Simran Manku from here on YouTube came through with a great self-care hack for us marathon makers. Try your best to take a break and stretch every 30 minutes. I like to start with my fingertips and stretch everything all the way up to my shoulders, my neck, as well as my back. Better yet, if you can, get up and stretch every 30 minutes. And don't forget to hydrate, and no, my dear, coffee does not count. One tip I constantly forget to use is this one from ML's Words of Wisdom. If you're putting a project on ice for a while and not planning to pack it with the hook, be sure to tag the project. Keep a few writable key tags nearby. I got this pack from the hardware store for less than $1. Write the hook size on the tag, attach it with a stitch marker, and rest assured that your project will be ready when you need it. If you're a type A maker, you might want to take your project storage to the next level. Grab an index card and fill out the important information like the pattern name, hook size, yarn details, and where you stopped in the pattern. This helps a lot for storing the project as well as replicating it down the line. Sarah from the Facebook group has a fantastic hack on how to battle project fatigue. Keep some small projects nearby to give yourself a break from those really big ones. If you get bored or frustrated with that sweater or blanket, take a break and make a granny square or a washcloth. These small wins can put the wind back in your sails to finish up those big whips. Now here is a tip that I use all the time. When you're traveling, pack cuticle nippers instead of scissors. They work just as well as scissors, they do double duty, and they're less likely to get taken at airport security. And this last tip comes from yours truly. It comes from my heart. Please, please, please take the time to make friends in the maker community. And no, I do not just mean following aspirational accounts on Instagram. I mean find a group in your area through a library or through a yarn shop. Make friends in Facebook groups or through other social media. People of every age and around the world are turning to yarn crafts, so it's likely that you'll stumble over a kindred spirit no matter where you choose to interact. And honestly, when it comes down to it, making with friends is just better. All right, friends, that's it for the tips. And if you learned even one thing, make sure you mosey on down to that like button. And if I forgot any of your favorite tips and hacks, drop those down in the comments. And today's cup of caffeine comes to you care of Phyllis Bailey. Thank you so much for the donation. I know that your wallet is not happy with me, but I have a feeling your yarn stash is. And you can share this cup of caffeine with me. Find the Maker of Things mug in my shop, link down in the description. If you enjoy my content and want to support my channel, buy me a coffee. Who knows, I might shout you out in my next video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.